But for now, we're going to get into gear discussion and gems and passives and jewels, etc. So the key part of the Aura Sacrifice build is frenzy charges generated through Ignite Chance. And the way that we achieve this is by a pretty reasonably high Ignite chance of about 63% through gear and passives, as well as jewels. So you get 20% off of Aura Sacrifice by itself, which is rather strong. But it's not enough. You need, in my opinion, at least about 50%, 55% to be reasonably effective at continuously igniting targets. And so the way that you achieve that is through, passive choice and gear, like I said. Now I've opted in for a dual Moku's Embrace setup, one with 9% chance and one with 7% chance. Now perfect roll ignite chance is 10% on these. So I'm losing out on about 4% ignite chance with my current setup. But it's what I had lying around, and the fire damage and res rolls on these are alright. It's one of the strengths of the Mokus is that not only do we benefit from the ignite chance and the fire damage, you also get pretty solid dual reses, meaning that really the only thing you lose out on your jewelry for these two pieces is life, which is a lot stronger than most builds can say. We benefit from pretty much every aspect of the Moku's Embrace except for the truly unique aspect, which is the increased attack speed while ignited and the 25% chance to be ignited. Because we're not using a Cloak of Flame or one of those new warbands affixes or prefixes that takes percentage of physical and converts it to fire, that would be ideal. I did want to talk about that since warbands is now out. If you can get your hands on a crafted rare that has that modifier on it, then these Mokus become incredibly more powerful. They're already pretty solid with the fire damage and the ignite chance and the dual res, but being able to actively take advantage as well as reducing the physical damage you take, which is a rather important aspect of the game now that physical damage is stronger and somewhat harder to mitigate. That would be a very strong option to run with the dual Mokus setup. But moving on from the Mokus, I want to talk about unique chests. And I didn't really cover this much in the previous build video. I didn't really feel like it was that important because I feel like it's a very standard, yes, no situation. So you want a 5-link, and if you can get your hands on a unique 5-link, then your options are pretty solid / standard. Do you want Lightning Coil for the better physical damage reduction? Do you want Belly of the Beast for, the more effective life pool? Do you want Carcass Jack for the greater AoE? Don't recommend Carcass Jack, by the way. Really don't feel like it's that great of an option, especially trying to roll, the colors. You can make the argument that if you can get your hands on a 5-link or a sacrifice, you open up more chest options, such as a Carcass Jack, where you don't care about the colors as much. Calm's Heart is a great chest. Personally, that's probably what I would use if I could get my hands on a 5-link Auras. You could run Bronze Lithe. I actually did some testing with that. I managed to get my hands on one today. It's only a 4-link. But the new Bronze Lithe increases movement skill damage by to 50% on a perfect roll, and 2 to level of socketed movement gems. And now that melee gems in particular have that scaling base damage modifier per level, 2 levels is not very much, it really isn't. But, it's a nice idea, and it's something I tried out, so I did some testing on a Bronze Lithe with a 4-link setup, and then a generic 4-link setup without the increased damage with movement skills and 10% increased attack speed and the +2 to level of socket movement gems. And my test basically came out that Bronze Lithe with my current setup in a 4-link versus a vanilla 4-link would roughly give you about 20% increased damage off of that, which is not bad. So Bronze Light, I think, is actually a fairly strong option, but of course you do lose out on resist and life, and with how many uniques this build is packing already, that's it's definitely a commitment you're gonna have to make, as well as trying to roll the colors. I struggled to get 2 reds on this, so, and you need at least 3 reds, blood magic, multi-strike, melee splash, sort of non-negotiable, but we'll get into that in a minute. So I feel like those are your unique chest options. And moving from that, I talked a bit in the comment section of my previous video of the potential of the 3 dragons, and the argument that I brought forth was that the 3 dragons changes your cold damage to ignite, which means that you would need cold damage to ignite. If you are not doing any cold damage, you can't ignite. So Herald of Ice helps to take care of that. The problem is then that we do a very little amount of cold damage, and the way that the interaction of damages work in terms of their status ailments is the more damage you do of that status ailment relative to the health of the mob, the more likely you are to inflict, and the duration of that status ailment for freezing and shocking specifically is increased depending on how much of the proportional mob's health you did with that hit. So with Ignite chance on our build, we sit at 63% flat, and with that we are capable of igniting consistently despite having very low amounts of cold damage. That is now our Ignite catalyst for the build. The way that we increase that is twofold beyond just the 63%. We have the Doriani's Invitation, which during Flask effect increases our Ignite chance by 10%. So we're now at 73%. And then Flammability Curse at level 18 is going to increase it by 13%, which brings us to 86% Ignite chance, which is basically igniting on practically every hit. So that's how you make the 3 dragons work, in my opinion, is you need more percentage Ignite chance in your build. If you do not have at least 60 or so percent Ignite chance as a regular modifier, then I feel like the Ignite chance is rather low if you're using a 3 dragons. And the Dorianis and the Flammability just help out quite a bit with that. So it just makes the 3 dragons even more viable. And what it really allows us to do is, instead of running Wrath to help proc Herald of Thunder more consistently, now that your fire damage can shock, you can run Anger instead of Wrath, get more damage because your build scales more off of fire damage than lightning damage, and get more consistent shocks as a result, because you're not doing some lightning damage but a lot of fire damage, meaning the shocks are more consistent, the cursing is more consistent. So 3 dragons is, if you can achieve the Ignite chance, in my opinion, a very, very strong choice, and the all-res is very, strong on it. Downside, of course, is low life, you don't care about the energy shield, evasion isn't that great, but incredibly powerful and possibly best in slot, in my opinion, for the Helm. Talked about Dark Ray Vectors a bit last time, I believe, but we'll just go over it some more. +1 to maximum frenzy charges is just incredibly desirable. You want as many frenzy charges in this build as you can get. If you can get a corrupted +1 to max frenzy charges on any piece of, gear, do it. It's just going to increase your damage and clear speed and survivability. And Dark Ray Vectors, in combination with Flicker Strike and a Frenzy Charge build, is honestly pretty absurd, because what it effectively does is it turns your Frenzy Charge into this incredibly multi-purpose defensive and offensive mechanic. So you get 14% increased attack speed per Frenzy Charge due to the Flicker Strike gem and the base mechanic of Frenzy Charges itself. You get 4% more damage per Frenzy Charge. You get 5% movement speed per per frenzy charge. You get 4% evasion per frenzy charge. That's a passive choice that you're going to have to make on your tree, but I would definitely suggest it because why not? 2% dodge chance per frenzy charge. So each frenzy charge is increasing your ability to survive and your ability to clear by a very significant amount. So with that being said, I did talk a little bit about the Doriani's Invitation. I want to come back to it real quick. It's solid. The increased fire damage is nice, obviously. The fire damage leached his life isn't incredibly, powerful, but it's nice to have. The additional ignite chance is very strong in conjunction with flammability and basic nice chance. I'm just using a pair of Tri-Res Life Rare Gloves. Helps to shore up resistances. In terms of rare amulets, if you're not going dual Mokus and rings, just in general, Ed is going to be very powerful. Added elemental damage is strong as well. Increased attack speed is going to come up a bit behind. The reason increased attack speed isn't quite as useful numbers-wise is simply because you get so much. You get 14% increased attack speed per frenzy charge. You're running multi-strike. You're on a 1.45 or so attack speed, two-hander. You're attacking very quickly. I believe without faster attacks, you're getting somewhere around 7.5 attacks per second with max frenzy charges up. So increased attack speed on gloves, for instance, isn't going to be a huge thing. You'd probably be a little bit better off with maybe just flat Ellie. Attack speed is probably just as good in that case, actually. Jewelry, though, I definitely want Wed and flat Ellie if you can get it. So I feel like that fairly adequately discusses different gear choices. The last thing I'd like to get into is flasks. So there are several unique flasks running around. You have your Taste of Hate, which is really sort of out of my price range, which is really only going to help you defensively in this build. Offensively, it's not going to give you much. Adziri's Promise is just a strong choice all around. It's extra damage, it's extra life leech, it's going to be very powerful in all cases realistically. The Chaos Res is nice on it too. What you really like about the Adziri's Promise flask in particular, though, is that it's something you want to keep up consistently, and in conjunction with the Doriani's, that's just going to give you 10% more ignite chance more consistently. So it just sort of works out very well in conjunction with that. Then the last one I want to talk about is the Dodra's Elixir, and why I think this is the absolute best flask you can get your hands on for the build. The reason it's so strong is that with this build, your frenzy charges will last on average 7 seconds, which means that you have about 7 seconds moving from a pack to another pack to ignite something and get that counter back up. What Dodra's Elixir allows you to do is increase that to 14 seconds in a pinch if you know you're not going to be able to hit that pack in time. It helps you generate frenzy charges faster in a pinch. So let's say you do flicker into a pack and you somehow do not ignite anything, which at 63% ignite chance, with your series up, potentially the target is already, cursed up. Very unlikely at that point, but it can happen. So Dodra's Elixir is going to get you out of that spot very, very quickly, because the odds of you getting another frenzy charge instantly and then flickering again and still not igniting anything it's just astronomical at that point. Like, it's so hard to make that happen that I've personally never experienced it in all the testing of this build. So yeah, I feel like that adequately covers the flask discussion in this regard. The new one like Lion's Roar, etc. don't really apply to this. They're mostly, physical modifiers. Not really going to benefit much from it. So moving on from that.